Hey guys, I just want to do a video. I've been looking up stuff on short stroking, and what I was having recent problems with was I was having a lot of jamming issues with this custom build, and this is a registered NFA SBR. Um, uh, with my build, I was having problems with my shells ejecting at the 1 o'clock position, and I started searching for things on the internet for how to fix this, and everybody's suggesting buffer spring and uh, heavier buffer and all sorts of stuff like that. And I got on AR-15 and started looking it up, and I didn't see any of this suggested anywhere on the internet. So I mean, at least on YouTube. So I thought I'd throw it out there. What I did, and if you do a build, of course this thing isn't loaded. Uh, if you do a build and you see that your casings are landing at 1 o'clock, I don't know if this will focus in. You can see on that deflector ramp where your shells deflect off of that part of your upper, there's like a shiny part right there. If you're getting that and your shells are landing at 1 o'clock, they're supposed to be landing at 3 o'clock. And what I found on AR15.com, I searched this issue on some of their forums. It turns out that your rifle may be overgassed, and if it's overgassed, there's not a whole lot you can do other than a regulated gas block. But I'm running a Adams Arms gas block, and the only regulated gas system on it is the suppressor setting and the single shot setting. So I don't really have a whole lot of options with the current gas block that I have on there. So what I found on AR15.com was a quarter test. And what was suggested, because I've bought all sorts of nonsense that I thought would help me fix my problem, because I was getting failure to ejects or FTEs when I was doing rapid firing, and a lot of people call this double feed, but what double feed actually is when it tries to feed 2 rounds into the chamber at the same time. But what was happening is that casing was coming back and it was just floating in my chamber, and then as the bolt was coming back to slide a feed another round into the chamber, that spent casing was just floating in that open chamber, and it was cramming that live round and that spent casing into the chamber. So what I read on AR15.com was they said to throw, what was it? I think they suggested like 1/4 at a time. So just grab a quarter and take your buffer and your buffer spring out of your buffer tube and throw like a quarter into your buffer tube, and then throw all your buffer assembly back together, and then start firing rounds off. Well, I did the 1/4 test, and my rounds were landing at about I think it was like 130, and then so I tried throwing another quarter in there, and those rounds were landing at about 2 o'clock. So then I said, what the hell, I'll throw a third quarter in there. And I threw a third quarter in there, and those rounds, let's see, you can see, sort of, this camera will focus, where that marred spot is on that deflector ramp. you can kind of see the brass marks on the upper portion of the deflector ramp. Those brass marks weren't on that ramp before, and my casings were landing at 3 o'clock. So there's all sorts of remedies that you can find on YouTube. There was some sort of like engine bore. I forget what it's called. It's some sort of like bore-all or some sort of like pipe cleaner that you use on engines. I forget what it's called. And I thought about buying some of that, and then I started doing some more researching because I bought the BCM extractor kit, and that helped me out first because after like every third round I was getting an FTE. But after I installed that BCM kit, it was like every once in a while I was having an FTE. So then I started, I threw a David Tubbs buffer spring in my buffer tube, and that seemed to help a little bit. I will say that if you start throwing quarters in your buffer tube, it will, you may have failure for your bolt to lock back, because there's more pressure being put forward on your buffer spring. So if you're having the same issues I was having, because like I said, when your deflector ramp starts getting all marred up, your shells are landing at 1 o'clock. It's probably because your AR is overgassed, which is, in my opinion, worse than being undergassed, because if it's undergassed, you could probably just pay your gunsmith to bore out your gas port in your barrel a little bit larger and see where things end up. But that was kind of my solution. I may get my gunsmith to kind of chop down my buffer tube a little bit shorter where it threads into, or where your castle nut threads into your backer plate, and see if that works, and take about whatever the distance for 3/4 stacked on top of each other is, and see if that'll solve my problem. I do have a little bit of trouble locking back my bolt, because I've got that bad lever on here, and you kind of have to rack that thing back in order to engage that bolt hold open button. So I thought I'd just throw that out there. Try throwing some quarters in your buffer tube if you're having FTE issues and whatnot. So let me know what you think. Comment, subscribe. I don't upload much, but what the